Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. I am the Holistic Yogi, Kamala Ingrid, and today I have a wonderful guest that I will be introducing you. Her name and her influence on others with jujitsu and how she got into it. And her name is Kristina Baarlan. Am I correct?
Baarlan, yeah.
Baarlan. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. And go ahead and introduce yourself and let's talk a little bit about how you got started in this sport and the love for it. What got you into this passion?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Kristina Baarlan, first degree black belt, soon to be
Wow.
second degree. I actually received my second degree like next month.
Wow.
So that means I've
Congrats.
been a black belt for 6 years. Oh my goodness.
Wow. That's
I forgot
great.
that. Yeah. And originally I started jujitsu, like I didn't even give it a thought. I was doing Muay Thai first, and my Muay Thai coach was like, "Yeah, you should try jujitsu." He showed me some stuff, and I'm like, "I don't think this stuff is for me. It doesn't make any sense. You're telling me that I can use technique and leverage, and I can, beat people who are bigger and stronger than me, and I just don't see it, you know." So I don't think it's for me. And it took me a year to try jujitsu again, but with the gi on. My teammate convinced me, he's like, "Hey, I really think you should try it. I'll lend you a gi top. I think you should try it." I'm like, "Sure, okay." And it made like night and day difference. Like I just fell in love immediately. Like I put the gi on. I didn't even have a full like gi. I just had the gi top that was like too big. I freaking grabbed the white belt that was there from the gym. I don't know who belonged to, how long it's been there. Like gyms just have like random belts hanging around.
Right.
And they just had like grappling shorts on. So it's like I like this little samba look. And
How old were
I
you?
don't- I was 21. Yeah, 21 at the time when I
Okay.
started. Um, and it just made sense. Like I just felt so empowered. Like I had these grips. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I can. Like I totally can use like technique and leverage, or at least I can attach myself, to these people who are like way bigger and stronger than me. And I feel like I can hang just fine. Like I'm not gonna get hurt. And it was like this big eye opener.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, I just felt so empowered. And then, it took a while though. I was still really heavily into Muay Thai. So it wasn't until my professor, Kaioteha, who I got my black belt under now, but when he first came to the US to teach, he was brought in by Cesar Gracie. Um, and I took one of his classes and I was like, oh my God, this is the jujitsu I want, because he was a small guy. He wasn't that much bigger than me. He was like the same age as me. Um, Looked really young, and he was just doing these amazing things, like just sweeping and submitting these 200-pound guys like it was absolutely nothing, you
Wow.
know? And I was like,
Impressive.
oh my God. Yeah, it was so impressive. Like I thought it was fake, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys are like, you're punking me right now. That's not real. But like saw the looks on the guys' faces, and they're just like, what's going on? What's happening? And they really had no answer for
Wow.
his jujitsu. And I was like, that's the jujitsu I want. Like I want it to look like effortless, or I want to be able to do what he's doing. I want to be like the smallest person on the mat and just be able to technically like beat people and make it look like graceful or beautiful. I don't know, but it was just like I wanted that. And like since then, I was like, all right, I guess I'm not going to do Muay Thai anymore. I just really want to focus on this jujitsu stuff because like I said, it just really made me feel empowered.
So he
And
inspired you basically. He's the one that kind of
yeah,
got you in.
yeah. And it's not like he like was trying to. I just, it's like seeing jujitsu for the first time, like really, really seeing what jujitsu can be. If you strip away the athleticism, you strip away like the brute strength, and you just like bring it down to its purest form of like the art form, like the technique and
Yes.
like the movement. Like that's what it was for me. And it was just like, wow. Like I didn't think that something that's supposed to be so brutal or whatever could look so effortless and so beautiful,
Okay.
like graceful almost. Yeah.
That's awesome. And how long did it take you to kind of like really get the hang of it and feel comfortable in that sport? Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes you're going through your trials, you're still figuring it out. How long did
Yeah.
it take you to feel that?
For me, like I feel like my experience is definitely way different from a lot of people because I felt like I belonged. Like when I say that like, oh my God, I should have been doing this from the beginning, like it's kind of like the world made sense. And like I immediately felt like, oh my God, I should have been doing jujitsu for my entire life. Like I was meant for jujitsu. Like
So you
I
found
had
your
such
purpose.
yes, like so like all the things. If we take it back to like my childhood, I was always a very very physical kid. Like could not keep my hands to myself. I always had to be touching people and I always got in trouble, you know, especially because I'm a girl, right?
Yeah.
Asian culture, you know,
Oh
female, it's
yeah.
like, ladies aren't supposed to act like that. You keep your hands to yourself. You sit with your legs crossed with your hands on your knees and you're supposed to be prim and proper, delicate, fragile. And I'm like, that's not me. You know, I was always just so rough.
Yeah.
And like, I was always climbing on things. I was always trying to wrestle with my cousins and I was always getting in trouble. My hands like have never been soft ever in my life, ever. Like I've always had these like very calloused, like, I don't want to say ugly because I love my hands now, but you know, I got picked on a whole lot as a child. Like, oh, Kristina's got man hands. And I'm like, why do I have these hands? And then jujitsu comes along and like all the things I grew up being reprimanded for, like everything that was like, no, you can't do that. That's not right. That's incorrect. Jujitsu was like, no, that's perfect. Like
Oh
that's
wow.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God, this is nice. I'm not getting trouble. Like it's okay for me to like be physical. It's okay for me to like grab onto people. Like
Yeah,
it felt so liberating.
that's
And
awesome.
so I like with my background with dance and
What kind of
picking up
dance? What type of dance?
um oh my lord, I started off with Filipino folk dancing when I was 5,
Ah,
and then when I reached 7 I started being classically trained in ballet and jazz. I did that for like 8 years. Like I thought dancing was going to be my life. I thought that was it, that was going to be my purpose, but something didn't
you're
just
looking
feel
at
right.
two opposites.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone who's known me from when I was a kid, like just dancing, and they know, and then they see me now doing jujitsu, they're like, "What happened?
How
How'd you get from ballet to Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
this happened?
How did that happen?" I feel like those things are very far apart from each other, but in my eyes, I feel like they're a lot closer than people
Thing.
think. Yeah,
Yeah,
like it.
I totally can relate to that, and because I'm a yoga teacher and a yogi from childhood, and never thought I'd become a teacher over the when I as I evolved, but I also danced in my early childhood too, ballet and jazz and modern, and so I that was a short period of my time, but when I transitioned into the yoga, in a sense they're different, but they're not.
Yes.
So I totally understand what you're saying about that difference, and where they're not the same,
Yeah.
in the sense of you still have to go it's a mind body connection. It's about pushing yourself to that limit. You as an athlete, because you're competing, how do you push yourself to those, to that next level?
Oh wow. So, for me, it's kind of like competition, like so, and I've had different I don't say different journeys, but different stages along my journey as a competitor, um when obviously when I was a white belt, I was like, oh, I just want to do something that feels fun. I'm naturally competitive,
Right.
and I didn't grow up doing anything competitive. First thing I started doing competitively was breakdancing, so that was kind of like the little transition there. Like, oh, how did you get from ballet to fighting? I think breakdancing was like that nice little medium that kind of merged those two things
The two.
together. Yeah, connected the two. But so I never really competed anything growing up as a child, and I was very very competitive, and I was trying so hard to like not be that way,
Uh-huh.
because it was always like reprimand, like, no, you can't be that way. And so it's like, well, then how can I prove myself? How can I show? Like, obviously I was in performing arts, so like for me that was like a really good like big validation. I put all this hard work into learning the choreography, and now I get to show everybody, right? But that's choreographed.
Yeah.
And so there's always been a part of me that's like, I want to fight. But the thing is, I hate confrontation. I don't want to like have confrontation with people, but like I physically just want to express myself in that type of arena. So when it comes to competition, you know, again, before it was like, oh, I just want to have fun in this. I just want to show what I can do. And then it turned into like, and I want to feel validated as a person. And that has like its own like little hangups, like, because like that's not necessarily the best thing to have, right? You know, if your self-worth relies on your results as an athlete, you know. So I had to have my own little you know, process of like separating my actual value from like what I accomplished as an athlete. So I had to go through that like that process of like therapy.
How was that hard for you to integrate?
Yes, it was, because I have you know, I'll say, I hate to say this, like I'm not ashamed to say, it's like I have a big ego, like, and to say
people have, everybody's in different places, and it's nice to like express how we manage ourselves through our passions and purpose in life, and how do we apply it to our everyday, you know, needs. So this is good to hear.
Yeah, like the thing is, it's like people are always told like, no, don't have an ego, no ego, no ego. And I'm like, well, the thing is, it's like you have to have a little bit, because otherwise you're not ever gonna really hold a true like self-worth, right?
Right.
You're never really gonna have like that, like, oh, this is who I am, and then this is what I demand for treatment of myself, right? And how you have that for yourself is how you're going to present that to the world, and therefore how people will treat you.
Right.
So you can't have no ego. Obviously, you don't want to control yours, but like for me, definitely, especially when I was younger, like in my 20s, it was like, oh, I need all this validation because I need to feel good about myself, because, you know, because of the ego, right? Because I didn't want to feel weak. I didn't want to feel like I couldn't do it. And so of course, so like there's a lot of positive, but there's a lot of negative pushing the positive, and that wasn't healthy. But then, like, as I transitioned, I worked through that process, and it's like, okay, now I'm just competing to be the best version of me, right? To be the best, whatever I can show. And so when I'm training, I'm always thinking like, okay, it's not about necessarily winning, but being able to bring the best that I can, win or lose. I want to be able to fight without any regrets.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, and then now as a black belt, and I had this moment too as a black belt, where I reached severe burnout, and I was competing because I felt like I needed to keep competing to stay relevant, so that people would want to keep learning from me as far as like seminars, teaching. But again, like that wasn't necessarily true, but I was so close to it that like it just, you know, like forcing myself. And again, I had to step back and look at it. And I'm like, man, like being a competitor doesn't define who I am, and it's not going to take, again, win or lose, it doesn't take away my worth of whatever I have accomplished in the past. Like I've accomplished a lot, you know?
Right.
And that's my own like imposter syndrome. So getting into the mindset of competing for like these major tournaments and having these goals, it really comes down to like, what do you want as a person, and what are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to say? Like, what is this goal, and what is this aspiration saying about you? And if you're doing it something, I don't say superficial, but something like, well, I just want to win, I just want to have gold medals, it's never going to stick. And that means that the training process is going to be increasingly harder, because there's nothing motivating you more than just a piece of metal, right? But if you're thinking like, oh my God, like I'm trying to reach the next level of the best version of me, which is what it was for me.
Right.
It was like, I could get through any training session. I could get through, you know, how grueling the diet was, you know, how achy my body was, but also being kind, being cognizant, like, okay, I have these aspirations, but you know, taking a day to heal and recover is not gonna hinder my ability to get to that next level and next version of me. So it was a lot of learning and a lot of having to like make mistakes, pushing myself too hard, coming back, and then being a little kinder.
That's beautiful. And you kind of did this on your own, and you kind of like figured it out, or you had some kind of guidance or coach or anyone to model through?
Yes and no. Yes and no. When I was a purple belt, and I had a fiance at that time, and he was also my professor, and it was a really, really great relationship. But I feel like it was one of those where it's just like the right person at the wrong time, you know. I wasn't at the emotional maturity that I need to be, as far like I had so much traumatic stuff that happened to me when I was younger, and I got pulled into this, like, I tried running away from it, and then it ended up affecting the relationship. But regardless of that, he was probably one of the best coaches I've ever had, like as far as like not just teaching me jujitsu, but also teaching me the mental aspect. Like he really was the person to like push, like, this is the mental aspect of jujitsu that you cannot ignore. Because if you only focus on the physical, if you only focus on the technical, you're only going to go so far. If you can unleash the part in your mind that allows you to succeed or allows you to like not be afraid to fail, then you're going to go a lot further. So like he really, really like encouraged me in that way. I remember I had one tournament as a purple belt, and like one of my worst performances ever. I was having panic attacks, and I struggle with anxiety and depression to begin with. But that day in particular was just so hard. Now I finally was just like, all right, you know what? I give in. I'm going to do I'll do the mental training. I'll do the mental coaching. I didn't want to do it because my ego was like, you don't need that. You just need to train harder.
Right.
And so I did the confident athlete, or the fearless athlete,
Fearless.
Which is like a 10-day like program that you could do at home. Like he purchased it. I can't remember like where, but and I did it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, you go, like the first part, it's so uncomfortable because you actually have to admit you're afraid, admit that like you have these faults that you don't want to look at. And so you're kind of forced to just look in the mirror and be like, yeah, like I'm afraid, or I feel these weaknesses, and the only way that I can, address this is by overcoming and saying like out loud, like, yeah, I'm afraid of losing, like I'm afraid of looking bad, or I'm afraid of having a bad performance because I'm afraid that people will judge me, and I'm afraid that if I lose, people won't love me anymore, and I'm gonna lose my friends, and no one's gonna, exactly, like the whole thing. And then once I did that, I was like, oh my God. 1 month later, I had one of the best performances I've ever had, and it was at Worlds. I was like, oh my God, this shit works. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Language. I was like, this works. And so I was way more open to like learning. So then the next thing was doing the audiobook, which was like psycho-cybernetics, which really kind of goes into like your blueprint, like as a child, things that you're told, experiences that had happened to you that cause you to have like these self-limiting beliefs about yourself. And then having to like essentially like not necessarily rewrite your blueprint, because you can't rewrite it, but being able to like, hey, that got put on my blueprint, recreate it, or like understand that like, hey, I used to have this thought, but I didn't question why it was there, because it was a parent, or an adult or some sort of like authority figure was telling me something, and I just didn't question it. I just like, oh, well, if they're saying it, it's probably true. And then having to like go back, I'm like, oh my God, this is the reason why I felt so much like, blockage in my heart, or like going forward, because, I believed, all these terrible things about myself that weren't necessarily true, but because of those circumstances, because of who said it, because of how it was done, I had, I believed that I wasn't worthy,
Right.
So,
it just led you to believe that over the time. And
so
it's basically breaking those blocks and starting over and recreating a blueprint for yourself and redesigning your life.
Yeah.
With a different belief system. Yeah.
It started off with having some coaching, and then and having encouragement from that relationship. I did also like the Hoffman process, which is also like another like 10-day like retreat program, which is crazy intense. And that helps you essentially, I guess, release like, we pick up a lot of patterns from our parents, right?
Yes.
And our parents pick up their stuff from their parents, and their parents a bit, right?
Cycle. Yes.
Right. Yes. So this program essentially helps you release like that generational trauma, or those generational patterns that get passed on to us. And like, man, I'm trying to operate, I'm this nice, like state of the art, hardware, but I'm operating under this like antiquated, like software.
Yes.
Right. And it doesn't feel authentic or real to me, and it causes problems. Right. And so I did that, same thing, under the encouragement of my ex-fiance. And then like, so after that relationship ended, and I had to come back home. I was like, wow, like I can't just abandon all this progress that I made. As much as pain I was in, is like, man, I really messed up. I made all these mistakes. It was really on my own to continue that journey of self-love, self-compassion, and cultivating of my own like emotional intelligence,
Right.
Understanding how I communicate. And so it started off with being coached, but as I got older, it was all about being self-motivated to like, be a better person, be a true person, like, and not run back to who I was before, that trauma and life circumstances have created me to be. Like I have, like, I was actually presented, I'm looking and I'm like, man, I have a choice. I can go back to being who I was and being
Right.
sad and being scared, or I can embrace, still afraid, but go forward and like really, really try to be the best version of myself and be the authentic version of myself.
That's
which,
beautiful.
it's hard to do, but I feel like that's what everybody wants, right? They want to be who they truly are. And whether that be like in career or hobby or home life, in relationships, romantic, platonic, whatever, familial. I think that's what everybody wants. And that's been like, I guess my own little, like my journey, or like my purpose.
Your
Right?
purpose, beautiful. And you've been able to apply this not only in your practice of your jiu-jitsu, but also in other areas of your life, right? Personal and everything.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
That's awesome.
And I try to, like, integrity is really big with me. So like whoever I am on the mat, that's the same person that, I want to be off the mat,
Yes.
So if I'm hardworking and striving and working hard on the mat, then I want to make sure I'm doing that in my real life. If I'm being kind and compassionate, but also making sure I'm stern, like on the mat, I'm doing that. If I'm able to uphold like my boundaries, like if I can fight out of positions that feel very uncomfortable on the mat, I can do that off the mat too. Absolutely. And that seems like sometimes that's hard. That's a harder one to do. Sometimes having to like not physically fight is harder to do than physically fighting, right? Like
absolutely.
Practicing saying no to people, setting boundaries, right? Making sure that you're communicating your needs without unapologetically, communicating your needs. Like these things are very, very hard to do, right?
But we make it hard. Yes. But but it's all because of what happens in their childhood that causes, depending on who was the stronger upper hand, whether it was the father or the mother, or whoever was your guardian, tends to like sometimes shut that down on a child. So as that person or that child grows and develops to become an adult now, a lot of times they have a hard time communicating or saying no, or being able to just be authentic with themselves, because they feel they have to, I guess, please others in order not to be judged or to be seen or to be heard, when it really is not about it. Exactly. And it's really learning to accept yourself in order for you to allow everything to kind of fall in place, and to learn to recreate that. So it's beautiful. I love that you actually were able to integrate that. So now you're at a place of like integrity. And who, as your child, who supported you in this journey, besides your ex-fiance, who actually was the main culprit to pull you into more of a mindset and connect you with that mind and body connection? Because that was a big aha moment for you, I'm assuming.
Yes.
That was amazing. Who, anyone before that kind of created, besides the learning the jiu-jitsu, which is where you found your purpose? Anything else that triggered it, maybe in your childhood with your parents, that might have like led you at least to know, okay, this is kind of like what I like or what I don't like, but they have an impact?
Like I didn't really truly have a lot of mentors growing up as a kid, and that was, it was just like I felt I didn't know where I belonged. But I will say I had one dance teacher, one dance instructor. Her name, she was my jazz instructor actually. Her name was Phyllis, and I don't know what it was about her that like I felt so safe with her.
That's awesome.
And like I don't know, it was kind of like I could embrace my weirdness around her. I could be weird, and I could just be like whatever, because I was a weird kid. and she just was like, yeah, do that. That's awesome, you know? Um, and she, you know, I just really felt like she was only there in my life for like a short period of time, you know, because after a certain amount of time, like I was getting more into like ballet. Of course, I love jazz, but like the management at the ballet company I was with, they were just like, yeah, the company members, I mean, like the higher level dancers, like that was like myself. They're like, we want them only focusing on ballet, so no more access to the jazz classes, the jazz program. And I'm like, and I was like so upset. Like I felt like a part of me was cut off, right?
Wow.
Because ballet, of course, it's like it's very strict, you know, very
I
form,
know.
right? You have to be in a certain way. And in jazz, you can just be a little bit more like free, right? You can
Yes,
feel the, yeah, and how your body is positioned doesn't necessarily have to be like, no, have to have 45-degree angle, shoulders back, chin up, make sure your toes are pointed, you know, like there was
exactly.
freedom. And I felt like that freedom was cut off from me. But she was definitely someone who I felt like, I won't say she was perfect in my eyes as a child, but in my eyes as a child, I was like, oh my God, she's amazing. Like she's
That's awesome.
beautiful and she has these kids. Like, and so like she's a single mom, but man, she has 3 kids and she's like this amazing dancer. And like she was just always so full of love. Like even if she was having like a hard day, she never showed it. And like, and when I was having a hard time, or like I remember there was one day it was like we were having a performance and it was a little late and I was upset because my parents were arguing on the way there. And they were, you know, during this time of the relationship, they were arguing quite a bit. Obviously, they're still together, and they have, you know, that was just at that period of time. But as a child, I didn't
Right.
understand. So I'm like afraid, like, oh my God, my parents are gonna divorce, they're gonna split, it's all my fault, you know. And she was just so like, you know, like your parents love you. She was so supportive during that
That's
time. Like
awesome.
I was crying and I just remember her hugging me and reassuring me that everything was gonna be okay and being afraid that I wasn't gonna give a good performance. And she's like, no, you're gonna be fine. And and like I said, like it was a short period of my life, but like it's like I'm never gonna forget like just how much love she had for me, like how safe I felt with her.
That's awesome.
And
And important
and
because how old were you at that time?
oh shoot, I want to say like 11, you know,
Yeah.
12, you know, 11, 12. And the crappy thing, like the thing that sucks about is like after I stopped being able to take classes with her, you know, that's when like a series of bad things started happening in my life, you know.
Because you
And
needed that
so
support. You had support with her in that aspect.
yeah, yeah. But there's also like other stuff that had happened to me, like I'll speak openly with it. Like the first time I was sexually assaulted was when I was 13 and it was by a classmate. And so if that happened when I was like 11, 12, it's like by 13, I didn't really have access to that support anymore. And also I didn't know who to talk to about it, you know. At that time as a young person, I thought it was my fault, you know,
I
or like,
know.
oh, I should have said no, I should have like been firm on my no, or I should have fought back, or you know, but I kind of just froze. and
Yeah.
and that carried on, and that was like the first event that kind of was like, oh, now this is a whole lot of bad stuff is going to happen. And that one event, because of how that happened and because of how I felt like I had to be silent about it, um, kind of created like the stage for later cases of sexual assault, or or sexual harassment that I had no control or no power over. At least I felt like I didn't have
Yeah.
any,
Right. Right. Right.
you know. Um, and then during that time, I didn't feel like I had anybody, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's why jujitsu was so like a lifesaver for
Empowering.
me. Yes, because it was
Yes.
the first time I felt like I actually had control of my own body,
Right.
you know.
Right. And
Um,
be able to stop anything if you had to. If it's like it gave you a sense of security, I guess, within yourself.
yeah, but
That's empowering.
the problem have never been the physical part of it though. The problem has always been the mental and the emotional
Always.
part of it,
Yes.
right? But because I felt empowered physically and I felt like, oh my God, like I could be myself, I felt more encouraged to like, oh, like I actually want to stand up for myself, like mentally and emotionally, not just physically.
That's very similar to like with yoga. Like as a yoga teacher, also now also being older, understanding it in a whole different perspective. And when I was younger, same scenario happened to me at the age of 14 for me. I felt the same scenario. You kind of close back, you retreat back, and then yes, you allow yourself to kind of be born, you get scared, you don't trust others, and you just go into that fear factor, which tends to enable more of that to come onto your world.
Exactly.
And that's the problem, because you're focusing on what you fear instead of what you really want to release. And as I got older, I learned more about it. And then as I became a yoga teacher, it's when I started diving in more in the psychology of understanding the mind and the body. But for me, more yoga came to me as a child when I had seizures. So I learned to control the physical part of it, like when I would know when something would come about, what triggered it, what emotions triggered, because I would write it down. And so that's how I ended up slowly. And at the age of 16, it was the last one I ever had. From that point on, I think until my daughter is when I really closed the chapter on that. I never had another one because birth, I chose to go, I chose to go natural, vaginal, not going through cesarean. And that's when I knew that chapter had finally closed, because I actually never had another seizure ever again. So to me, yoga was the beginning of empowering me. But I started in the physical aspect of it, learning it because, I can get into a headstand. I can do this, I can do that. But as I dove deeper into the practice, and it was more than that, it's all connecting mind and body. How you feel is a reflection of what goes on. So whatever emotions are coming on, the same thing like you have to learn to control, because if not, it can take you to another path, and it can lead to other destructions of the body. It leads on to diseases, and that's how I learned to basically control my situation from going through seizures, and also empowering myself and empowering others that already went through what you and I share, and learn to just close that chapter and recreate my blueprint. So it's very similar to what you're going through. But it's a mind-body connection, and in a holistic way. So I totally understand. It's very, very similar to my path as well. So, and I also noticed something that was empowering. You did something for the month of March.
Yes.
And you did something for women. So
yes.
Can you fill us in a little?
So one of my sponsors is Virus International, and they create really cool workout gear, and so we had they had ongoing thing for the month of March where it's you buy some one of their products, and then they're going to donate to the 10 A Day Kids Project. Now 10 A Day is one of the biggest one of the first superstars of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he has this amazing project in Brazil, in one of the favelas, and this is also another I'll say a passion project of mine, but something I do believe in, which is you have these kids in favelas in Brazil, right? These are kind of the slums, right? And if they don't ever leave the favelas, if they don't ever have an opportunity to explore other opportunities, they're going to be stuck in the favela, and either they never leave the favela or they never leave the city, let alone leave the state or the country, right? And if they're stuck there, it's very easy to get caught up with crime, drugs, gang, violence, or be a casualty, because that is their daily reality for them. You bring jiu-jitsu there to the favelas, and it gives these kids an opportunity to see something more than just what they're seeing every single day. Now they have goals. They can be oh my God, I didn't same thing for us. I didn't realize I was capable of this. I want more now. I want to strive for more. I want more for myself. But they're not rich. Unfortunately, jiu-jitsu is a rich man's sport. It's not meant for poor people.
Right.
But now we have we especially people like us, we're in a position of privilege to be able to help those find the path to jiu-jitsu, because it's not easy, right?
Right.
So we can get them workout attire, get them uniforms, and provide opportunities for them to learn jiu-jitsu so that they can feel physically empowered, and feel physically capable, right? If they have to defend themselves, they can defend themselves. But two, now they can think like, oh, wow, maybe I can compete. Now I get to travel. Now they're being inspired, like, maybe I can go to school and learn physical education and get a degree. You have a lot of stories of kids, that come up from these projects, and they're like, yeah, I didn't have any goals, and then I had jujitsu, and then I threw everything into that because that gave me all the opportunities
That's amazing.
to get out of the slums. And so of course, like, big promotion on that, because you really want to make sure that it's not just about like virtue signaling and feeling good about just like, oh, I donated,
Right.
but understanding that, like, even just giving someone like a pair of shoes or a pair of pants or a shirt or whatever, like, that's going to be their motivation to show up to training, or that going to be their motivation, like, hey, I want to have this goal for myself. Like,
Right.
And if we have a lot of things here, we don't have everything, but if we're in a position to be able to, if we think about the joy that we feel or the empowerment we feel every time we step on the mat, being able to have the ability to pass that on to a child so that they feel like they can have a future, and again, be encouraged and inspired to, like, hey, I want more, then I'm always, and that's just something I like doing. I always support causes that are in line with what I feel like is authentic to me. So if it's
Absolutely.
about creating awareness about domestic violence or sexual assault, men or women, and that's like
Right.
another thing too. Bringing awareness to mental health, right? Like, I think for me, in particular, like anxiety, depression, talking about emotional intelligence, talking about being vulnerable and embracing being vulnerable. Jiu-jitsu has given so much to me, and I feel like it's only right for me to just, like, speak my truth and be authentic.
Right.
Like, I found my authentic self. Now let me speak authentically, and maybe it might inspire other people to also want to reach their authentic selves too. Like, shed the skin of what they've been told their entire life, what society has told them they have to be, what their family has told them what they have to be, what other relationships have told them they had to be, and actually really embrace who they want to be.
Who they want to be. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that. I love that. I love that. And who's this organization that you are volunteering with?
Wait, so that's a Saturday Kids project. And I believe you could find them up on Instagram.
Well,
You
I'll
have to look
take,
up the actual handle.
we'll put the link
Yeah,
on this one. We'll
yeah.
actually, so those that want to support, be happy to, they'll know where to
Yeah,
go. I'll definitely
yeah,
love this. This is
yeah.
beautiful, you know.
And then for the mental health awareness, and I work with well, I don't work, but like, I support, and it's actually the baby of one of my best friends. Her name is Erin Hurley, also a female black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, nice.
Amazing person, and she created a Submit the Stigma, and that's her NPO. And and she could tell you all about her story, about how she brought it up and came together. But I remember when she first, she's like, hey, I want to do this thing, have like seminars and bring awareness, and we can donate to like these, organizations. And I'm like, yeah, 100%, I'm on board, and so that's something that I always like support, to make the stigma, with Erin Hurley. My own personal women's project for women in jiu-jitsu is Inspire. I started that when I was a purple belt in 2011. And that's essentially like an open mat type setting where women can come together and just train. But it's meant to be very empowering. It's meant to be like, hey, like, especially like, I started it when I was living in Arizona. And at that time, you didn't really have any other women to train with. And any time that you got to train with women from another gym, it wasn't training, it was fighting, because we're competing against them, right? So why don't we create this this event where women can train with each other in a non-competitive atmosphere,
Nice.
And bond and learn and inspire each other, right? You don't have to be like this world-class competitor to inspire people. Sometimes you could just be a mom with a 9 to 5, and with your 2 or 3 kids, and you want to do jujitsu, and you want to do it all, and that's going to be inspiration for another person. So like, wow, I'm a mom, I didn't think I could do jujitsu. Like,
Right.
if you can do it, maybe I can do it. Or like, or maybe you see like, oh, like I see my kids doing it all the time. Maybe I can do it too, or my partner, or, hey, I've always wanted to learn how to, learn some sort of self-defense, but I don't know where to start. And I'm afraid because I don't want to be with a whole bunch of men. This is a great way to meet women, and bond and share experiences that transcend like learning jujitsu, but like bonding, like what it means to be a woman, and like, but just having jujitsu as a common bond, and I don't say like I didn't have too many like female friends before jujitsu, like it was very hard actually before martial arts, because I started making female friends in Muay Thai, but it was very hard. I had a lot of trust issues growing up, I and I never really felt safe around women, even though like they're obviously like wasn't necessarily safe around guys either, but like that community just like really made me like help me embrace my femininity, all the things that I saw as weakness when I was a kid or growing up. Jiu-jitsu was just like, no, that's an asset. That's like, I can embrace that. I don't, I can be feminine and not, and just because I'm feminine or embracing my femininity doesn't mean I'm weak or delicate or fragile. That's just like another source of strength more than anything.
Right.
And I guess I just really wanted to like create like that sisterhood,
That's beautiful.
like, like I since I didn't have it growing up, or like I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere growing up, now that like I'm a position that like I'm like, hey, I don't say I'm somebody, but like, people think I'm kind of cool, and I'm like, that can't be a lie, right? Like, so like maybe if I just be myself, maybe other people want to do that, and then I'm gonna find people who are like me, and I feel like that's essentially what happened. I found a whole bunch of lovely women who are just as weird and just as like quirky, and like like I found my tribe of
and
people
unique,
through jiu-jitsu.
Unique
Yeah.
women. But the thing is that people don't realize we all have very much, everyone has had their some worse than others, some upbringings that have been very, difficult than others. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have had, that have been in that place where we have all been at one place. But it's just, this is beautiful because it's inspiring that to know that, yes, you can take control of your life. Yes, you can do it. It doesn't matter what you're doing in life, where if it's dance, if it's jiu-jitsu, if it's yoga, if it's martial art, it doesn't matter. It's just, it could be, you can be strictly an artist. It doesn't matter. It just, you can actually use that to empower yourself, but basically learn to understand your emotions, and learn to also understand that mind and body, you can't separate them, that they have to come together. In order for you to bring that together, you have to understand, need to go back to the roots, what triggers those emotions, and how to basically rewrite your belief system to be able to push forward. I love that. I also, where do you see yourself like within a few years from now? I know sometimes this could take a time. It could be something that happens overnight. I know you'll let it float, but where do you see yourself down the road?
Down the road, eventually, I would like to be able to have my own gym, and that's been the dream forever. Like have like my own program, have my own jiu-jitsu program where I'm teaching. I have my own students, my own place of business. I want to have a family. Like I want it all. Like, and here's the thing: it's like I'm 34. I'm turning 35 in August, so it's like I always have in my head, like, oh my God, my biological clock, it's ticking. Oh my God, I need to, and it's so hard because it feels like I have to choose between career and family. Like, how can I do both at the same time? But I feel like if I just kind of like, just embrace, be like, screw it, just go forward and everything's going to work out. I think everything's going to be okay. But I'm scared. I'm so scared. I'm scared all the time. And I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed to admit that, because there's so many uncertainties out there, like, will it work? Will it succeed? Like, are people really going to want to learn from me? A lot of that is the imposter syndrome saying like, hey, who cares if you won this many tournaments and all, like, I don't know. It's such a weird thing where it's like, on paper, I can look at all the things I've accomplished and I've done, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot. but in the same breath, and then we're like, but it's not that much. Anybody could have done that. Like, it's so easy to like
No,
diminish. And I'm like, but I'm aware. Like, that's not me. That's imposter syndrome me. Like,
that's
you know?
cute though. But you'll get there. You'll get there. I think
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I did the
yeah.
same thing. I had a moment in my life where I never thought I'd be teaching yoga. You know, I went into the working that 9 to 5 job and having a secure job. And then when I had a life altering event, I decided to, you know what, let me spend some time with my child. Let me do what I've always wanted to do. But boy, was I scared, because like you said, the uncertainty, is this going to work? Am I going to be able to pay the bills? Am I going to be able to do this? And as a single mom, it was challenging, but honestly, when it's meant to be and when you want something so bad that's already within you, it will flow.
Yeah.
Everything flowed. I had a wonderful time doing that part of my life, raising my daughter at the same time and having that balance between work and being a mother. So I think you'll do wonderful. You have a lot of beautiful things and a lot of beautiful qualities and a lot of amazing visions, you know, how you want to help others out. You have great tools already that I can see you already implicating them into those. Once you open up that studio, I could see you teaching the younger ones a very good, you know, sense of giving them a good sense of direction to their purpose and enabling them to persevere their career, their, you know, their passions and their sports. So that's beautiful. I think you do great. I would.
So, like, I'm so, you know, you never know. Like, especially when it comes to like having my own kids, I'm like, oh my God, it was, you know, it was tough. You know, I love my parents. You know.
You could just love them and for what they give us, and then the rest of it is, you know, dismiss the rest and take with the best qualities of your loved ones, implicate that into your world, and everything else can be dismissed. You create from here on. You make your own blueprint.
Yeah, like, you know, again, like, it's not like they weren't supportive, but, you know, there was like a limit to that support, you know? And but the thing is, it's like, it's not their fault, you know, their parents taught them to be that way. Their parents, you know, so it's like, there's so much like forgiveness from there.
That's
but at the same
beautiful.
time, it's like, I can forgive and I can like, okay, I can acknowledge that that's, you know, that's how it was for you, but I don't have to continue living under those like types of like the rule set or like your value system. Like, clearly my value system and your value system are very different, but that's not going to stop me from loving you.
Exactly.
But it is also going to make me like, hey, these are my boundaries, and that's a no. Like, I understand that's what you value, but it's not what I value, and so we're just going to leave it at that. But I still love you, you know.
That's beautiful.
And I'm glad I can have that. Like, if I didn't have that experience with that with the Hoffman process, I feel like I would have had that stop, you know, that blockage, you know, in my chest, you know.
Yes,
like,
yes. That's beautiful. And what is what would you like to a couple words of wisdom or anything that you would like to like let our listeners know, that something that will inspire them to keep doing what they're doing? Anything?
Oh, yeah. There's so much to say.
You're open.
Yeah. I truly do believe in perseverance, you know. Persevere when things are getting rough, persevere like when the pressure is coming on and it feels like, yeah, I can't do it. Like, you're gonna last through that hard time, right? You know, like, because those aren't gonna last, but for as long as you believe that you can keep going forward and you can just like, I can stick it out, then you're gonna be fine. And also understanding too is like, and you don't have to be tough all the time. You don't have to be strong all the time. So like, yes, persevere. Yes, you know, be disciplined, be dedicated, and love yourself above all, right? But don't be afraid to like step back and say, hey, I need help. Hey, like, I'm scared. Hey, you know, I'm unsure. Because that's natural, right?
Yes.
Like, we can't expect to succeed if we are always blocking our own feelings and our instincts and our intuitions about a situation. We're never going to succeed. And sometimes we have to question those, you know, like, sometimes our natural response to a situation or you know, to something like is based off of a trauma, right? Or based off of something that happened before. and what happened then, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen right now, right? And so you have to like you have to always check in with yourself, like, hey, is this me making this decision, or is this a past experience making this decision? Is this a younger version of me? Is this an emotional child version of me that's not wanting to do this? Or is this like me really not wanting to do this, check in with yourself. And again, like if you feel like, oh man, I just need to step back a little bit, that's fine. Take a step back, breathe, address what's going on, and then go forward again. Because like forward is always going to be there. It's never not going to be there. Future is always going to be there. You don't have to rush towards it. You don't have to sprint towards it, right? Like this life is like I won't even say like a marathon, but it's a journey.
It's a journey.
And you can't keep going forward if you don't take breaks, if you don't address when you have blisters on your feet, or if you don't have the right shoes on your feet, like be the person. And the number one thing too is like, be the person that you needed when you were younger.
Thank you. I love that.
If right? Like, I feel like that's what I'm striving to be. Like, I want to be the person that, like, when I'm younger, like, a younger version of me will be like, oh my God, she's so cool. I want to be like that, Or if I needed a mentor, I want to be a mentor now. If I needed someone to, like, give me a hug or, like, set me straight and be like, hey, like, you can do this. Or like, hey, what you're doing right now, you're hurting yourself. But I'm not going to judge you for that. But like, know that you're worth more, right? Like, just have someone to like, like be that person. Be that person for yourself. You don't have to be it for anybody else. Be that for yourself first, and the rest, that's just naturally going to come out. As you don't, like, love yourself for you, not for anybody else. Don't fix yourself for anybody else except for you.
For you. Yes.
Everything has to come from that self-love, right? And because everything else after that, it's like, well, other people aren't going to live your life, right?
No,
only you live your life.
Only you do.
Yeah. So
and it's like, what kind of life you want? It's like,
exactly. Now is the time.
Exactly.
Now is the time, like, and if you're scared, that's okay. Just admit that you're scared, and then dig your feet in and try to go forward anyways, or find a way that, that's authentic to you. Like, that's the number one thing I can say. I don't know. That's a lot. There's a lot.
No, that's beautiful. That's a lot of, I mean, I can relate to you in many ways, even though we're two different worlds. It's and even on the other side of the world, because you're in Cali while I'm in Florida. So I love it. I could totally understand and relate to you in 100%, because, I'm in my 40s, late 40s now. And you're how old now?
I would not have guessed you were anywhere in your 40s. I would have guessed that we were like the same age. I'm 34, turning 35.
Oh, honey, 49.
Yeah.
Turning
what?
50. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, turning 50. By August. So yeah, this is the end of my 40s.
August what?
15. Leo.
Ah, August 20. Leo also.
That's why
you're age ninjas. Yes, the hair. The hair.
A lot.
The hair.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. I don't complain about that. I love it.
It's just same.
Florida can just handle. You gotta, like, sometimes I gotta flatten it out because I can't deal with the heat. I need to breathe a little bit. But for the most part, this is beautiful though. I love how you have been able to inspire so many people, that you're also helping a lot of children that in need. I am going to also link for people to follow you on your Instagram, if that's okay with you. I'll put that in there so you can go ahead. If there's anything that people, any of our listeners are wanting to participate to those programs and organizations you're part of, they can go ahead and visit you on those links. So Kristina, thank you so much for being part of my show. And continue doing what you're doing. You're going to be a great your owner to your own, what do you call those studios? There's a name for them?
Oh, I mean, I could just call it an academy or a gym, or
let's say your academy. Yeah. I guess. I thought wasn't there a name for them? Don't they have a name?
No, not really. I mean, like, you could say dojo, but it's not really a dojo. But that's more like, I feel like that's more like judo, or more like traditional martial arts, not necessarily for jiu-jitsu. So you could just call it an academy.
Academy. You'll have a great academy, a beautiful family, and you will strive for a lot. I can see it happening. So good luck, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. I follow you now, so I would love to see what you can have coming on and down the road.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.